McLaren Senna is named after the great Ayrton himself, and it's quite simply the most focused, most extreme road car McLaren has yet built. It costs £750,000 and is powered by a new version of the 4-litre twin-turbo V8 first seen in the 720S, and it produces 789 bhp. Without fluids, it weighs a mere 1198 kilograms, so call it 1300 kilograms, ready to run, which is enough power relative to its weight to fire the Senna to 124 miles an hour from rest in just 6.8 seconds, and that makes it identical to the P1 for pure acceleration. But the Senna isn't just about straight line performance. This is a track car that's been just about legalised for the road, and as such, it has the most advanced aerodynamic package seen on any road car ever. And the result is an astonishing 800 kilograms of downforce at 155 miles an hour, which means the Senna is actually all about corners, not straights. On lap time, it will eat a P1 for breakfast, even a P1 GTR, around any circuit. So it's quite a car. Evo spoke to the Senna's project manager, Mark Gayton, recently to find out more about how it came to be.
Where do you start when you first begin designing a car like this? Do you have a series of target numbers that you want to try and hit? Or do you have one specific thing in mind and everything else kind of wasn't just as important as that? What's day one, and you know, what exact area did you start with this car, and when?
So we started January 2016, and that's when we started the program off. We created a brief, and the brief was we wanted mainly a track car. Had to be road legal as well. But we wanted to really stretch all of our attributes for a track car, and one of the big ones was aero. We wanted a lot more aero performance than we've ever done before. So you have to start with some numbers, because you have to have something. You have to have a target to shoot for, and then you have to explain to people what it's going to take to get to a number, like 800 kilos of downforce.
And was that the number originally, or did you end up in a slightly happier place?
No, we targeted a high number, and actually then we worked really hard to maintain it. And all the way through the process, you lose a bit, and then you gain a bit, and then you test something, and it works better than you think, and then other aspects don't work quite as well. So I can remember we've had quite a few meetings looking at some of the aero treatments, especially around the front of the car, to look at actually how did they perform in the wind tunnel? Were they performing the way we predicted they would be? And where we lost a bit of downforce, then we go back and adjust something else to maintain the downforce in that area.
Quite often, aerodynamicists and designers don't get on that well. Presumably that was your job to manage that.
Yeah, that was part
process.
of my job, really.
Was that a war?
Well, let's say it was a passionate working relationship. So because they both want to do the best for their own area, sure. But for this time, the aero team had far more say in how the car had to perform. Not necessarily how it was going to look, but how it performed. So they would sketch this area. We'd like this feature, please, and we'd like this opening. And so when you start to put all of their requests and their openings together, all of a sudden you've got a hard model, which then the design team can start working with and start maybe challenging a bit and going, well, if you can change that aspect and you can move this, it can be slightly more harmonious in this area. But I would say this is probably our most aero-driven car to date. You can see from the styling that every surface has really got a story. Sure. And I've got a story for every surface for you as well.
I mean, these intakes here, or these outtakes there, they're just dramatic, aren't they? Like you live in one of those.
Yeah, so we sacrificed the luggage bin. So there's
that's gone completely.
That's gone. There's a large low temp radiator in there for the engine, and then we looked at the intake for the LTR as well, and then worked on the side, the pod construction of the corner, to manage all the air through into the wheel arches, out of the wheel arches, and down the side of the car as well.
So you've got 800, and that's at whatever it is, 150 odd miles an hour?
250 kph.
Okay. where does the aero start to work? What speed have you got to be going in order for you to be getting proper benefit from it?
Yeah, it's quite I mean, from zero, the aero loading starts to climb in quite a consistent way. So you don't really get if you can imagine a graph, there's not a knee in the graph where you get nothing, then it starts to work. Yeah. It's very progressive the way it builds.
So are you getting aero benefits, say 50 miles an hour?
You're getting some, but at lower speeds you'd be more reliant on the mechanical grip. Where the aero, then as you go faster, you get more and more aero benefit.
So we've got 4 modes.
Yes.
Is that right?
Can
you just explain A, what they are, and B, what happens as you go up through them?
So normal mode is the most compliant mode for road use. I think it's probably an everyday mode for using on road. Sport gives you a little bit more taut suspension settings, and it's probably most engaging from a gear change point of view as well, because it uses our ignition cut setup for the engine. Okay. So that's where we're cutting the spark, and we keep on fueling, and then we reignite when we want to bring the engine back up. So it's a real quick gear change. And then when you move to track mode, the car's still at the same ride height. Track mode's even firmer calibration on the suspension, and you get we change the engine gear change as well to something we call inertia push. Yeah. So that's where it's not as fast as ignition cut, but actually it
fills the gap.
And it's the fastest way of getting through a change. We use residual torque that's in the driveline to actually pull the engine through the change rather than dropping it and pulling it back up. So they're the sort of 3 normal modes, and you probably recognise them from other McLarens. And then what we have is we have a race mode, which is not for road use, but it's only for track use, and that will drop the car into and makes best use of the aerodynamics. And that's where most of the aerodynamics have been designed for race mode.
And it becomes illegal on the road purely because of the ride height?
Yeah, because it's not been homologated at that height. So for the ride height, it's a track-only use, but also it's not that usable at that height because the ramp angle, the clearance under the car as well, it's just not that friendly on the road.
Sure. This is going to be a rather unfair question, but is this car basically a 720S with a ton of bits on it? Or is it a brand new, completely different thing?
It'd be easy for me to say, we've changed this, we've changed this, we've changed this, we've changed this. And so you start with something, you change all the components. And is it a variant of what you started with, or is it something new? When we started with looking at what we wanted to achieve, and then we started talking to the aero team, started talking to the design team. Even the doors, they're brand new doors. Door development's quite a big thing.
The doors weren't cheap on the 720S, I seem to remember.
No, the McLaren dihedral doors are lovely things, and with these doors, ingress-egress is fantastic. But we wanted to save weight, and we wanted a smaller package. The car is actually narrower at the waist, so to evacuate the air from the wheel arches. So we said, right, we'll do new doors. Okay, we'll do a new structure. So the rear of the car is new. Okay, so we'll actually create a new...
When you say new structure, what, subframes?
So the whole rear of Senna is one big composite structure that's got a double bulkhead with all its rollover protection all built in, and all the anchor points for a 6-point harness as well.
Okay, that's very different then.
Yeah, so we started with the structure of the car, changed that, and then we looked at the front frame, the overhangs a lot more. So there's a whole new carbon fiber structure underneath that manages all the crash loads. So when you say we started with a 720, well, it's got the 4-litre V8, but it's got 800 newton meters and 800 PS, and we've changed the intake plenum. It's a whole new induction system. It's got new camshafts. It's got a new way of controlling the engine. Normally, we control the engine bank to bank, so we control each side. We control each cylinder on Senna, so this is something new for us.
Crikey, okay. But I mean, fundamentally, you've got the monocell.
Yes.
Two or three, is it
This
now?
is three. Three now, yeah.
Same 4-litre V8,
Yep.
different state of tune, same gearbox.
Yeah, we got our 7-speed shift.
Okay. So the bare bones of a 720S.
Yeah, the bare bones, but there's a McLaren we use the word a bit too much, DNA sometimes, but they're our core building blocks. But everything you look at, everything else is new. The whole body is new. The suspension system was only ever used on P1, and this is a new evolution of it. You know, our race-active suspension. So where we have,
And that's completely different from 720S.
completely
Absolutely,
different.
yeah.
You know, we've got not only ride height control, we've got heave control, and we can change the pressure front to rear as well. So that works in conjunction with the aero system, with the active aero system front to rear as well. So those two systems working together are completely different than even P1.
And am I right in thinking that in all its modes, the car is basically monitoring what it is doing, and the ride height is...
Yes, it's constantly
subtly
monitoring its ride height to manage its aero loading, and actually reacting to what the road is doing as well.
Is it you haven't got cameras where it's reading?
No. So it's reacting. I can't remember how many milliseconds it takes. So as soon as the sensors on the system detect maybe one damper going into bump, the system responds to level itself.
So it's still reactive,
Yes.
not active.
Yes, it's not looking ahead.
No.
Not yet.
McLaren claims the Senna can stop from 200 kilometres an hour, or 124 miles an hour, in just 100 metres. Mostly that's due to its massive new carbon ceramic brake discs and its forged 6-piston monoblock calipers at the front, 4 pistons at the back. But it's also down to that absence of overall weight, plus a set of new bespoke Pirelli P0 Trofeo tyres that deliver almost as much grip as a full slick in the dry, says McLaren.
So here we are, inside the Senna. It feels fundamentally familiar to me, having sat in various of your products over the years, particularly 720 with the dash that moves.
Yeah.
But there are definitely some differences. What is different in here compared with the 720?
Oh, there's quite a lot. I mean, the interior team as well took on the challenge of a lot of lightweight components, and the design team as well worked with the ergonomic team to actually make the use on track probably a bit easier. So you'll notice that what we call the DNR module moves with the seat.
Yeah, I really like that.
So that it's always in the same place, so you always know where it is. And we've repackaged our display here to be more upright and more angled towards the driver. So you can look over the top of it when you're on a track, but then you can also look down at the track telemetry.
Okay.
And you can read track telemetry quite quickly.
I'm struggling to find the on-off button, the start button. Where's that gone?
It's up here.
Oh, okay.
So we've moved all switches up here now. So even the door opening, window lift buttons, the stop-start buttons up here. Because when we redesigned the doors, we took all the weight off the doors and we centralised all the weight here. Now what that does, that saves weight on harnesses. We're not chasing harnesses out to doors. We're not duplicating switch packs. So we put it all up in this central area.
These seats are mega as well, aren't they?
Yeah, so these, what we've done, we took our previous seats that we originally put into P1. People really liked them, but we wanted a little bit more support on the track, on the shoulders.
Yeah.
And so we've done a new shell. The shell is just over 3.35 kilos in its own right. It's really light. It's a twin skin molded shell, so which is quite a first for us. And to try and help with seat cooling, you see the seat's got individual pads as well.
Yeah.
So that and we've done a lot of work on pressure mapping and contact points. And then these can be individually tailored. So we do 2 sizes for width, you can have individual tailored pads as well.
I mean, they're firm, but they feel pretty comfortable as well.
Yeah, so
you feel properly clamped. Which is
I think the secret of a good seat is if you drive it for 2 hours, how do you feel after 2 hours?
Yeah.
You know, if the seat feels quite comfortable after a few seconds, okay, that may be okay, but it's really 2 hours. We put a lot of time into what does this feel like after 2 hours of driving.
I noticed the paddle shifts, the actual paddles themselves, they look a lot bigger to me.
Yeah,
right?
so we've got our longest paddle on this car, so that you can still use the paddles when you're steering.
Is that a P1 paddle?
Yes, it's very similar to P1.
Right.
It's the same we had on 675 LT and P1.
How noisy is it on the move? I mean, I've seen in your materials that you've actually been very kind of courageous in the way you've expressed it, because you've said we're comfortable with the fact that refinement's taken a bit of a punch, and, because it's a proper track focus.
It is.
So
It is.
50, 60 miles an hour. Can you hear yourself think or not?
If you're off throttle, you can have a conversation at 50, 60 miles an hour. But when you're on throttle, this whole cabin comes alive. I mean, you've got the induction noise from the air intake system directly above your head.
Yeah.
You've got a double-walled rear structure, which actually is excited by the engine. So the engine feels in the cabin with you.
Right, okay.
So you really experience this car.
All right, I think I need to fire it up. Am I allowed to fire it up?
Yes, you are.
You sure?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
From the rear, the Senna looks pretty wild, but also deeply functional aerodynamically. And it features all sorts of slats and scoops, as you can see, to allow hot air to flow out of and away from it on the move. But inevitably, it's that enormous wing that dominates the rear view, and which defines the car visually.
So Mark, this is very obviously the business end of the car. Can you just describe what this wing does and how it does it?
Yeah, so we decided quite early on in the program we're going to have a high fixed wing, and then it was about the detail of the wing.
So it's fixed? I thought it moves.
It moves, but what I mean is it doesn't go back down into the body, like P1. We wanted it up in the airflow, stays there all the time.
So that's it, it doesn't go any further?
No, so what it has a DRS mode, it has a normal mode, which is in now, that's its normal aero loading mode, and then it has an increased aero mode and an air brake mode as well, for when you're braking.
Okay, and that's where you're getting most of your 800 kilograms of that.
Well, of course, the car has to be balanced, and so the rear wing works with the active front aero to balance the car. So the most important aspects of this is that we're hanging the rear wing instead of supporting the rear wing. This keeps the underside, especially around by the pylons, nice and clean, and we keep the efficiency of the outer part of the wing, which is doing most of the work for us. It's a twin element wing because we get more efficiency from two elements of that size than one large element. And also the end plates have an important function to manage the air from spilling off the wing as well.
So Mark, there's one thing I've noticed. There's no number plate. Where does the number plate go?
So
presumably whatever you put on is going to affect the air coming out the back of it.
That's right, and that's exactly why what you're looking at now is it's in its track mode, where the number plate plint's not fitted. But between those fixings of those fences there's a carbon fibre number plate plinth that you screw on, and then when you go to the track you can take it off to get the maximum heat dissipation out of the rear of the car. The front also has a similar treatment where we've hidden the fixings underneath, so you can put a number plate plinth on, but when you go to the track you take the number plate plinth off and then you get maximum low temp rad performance as well.
Wow, that's quite trick, isn't it? I like that.
We drive the Senna later this year, and it'll be at an as-yet undisclosed circuit that will, says McLaren, have lots of fast corners on it, where the car can really show us what it can do. And so for the time being, everything else, as they say, is just waiting.